It's excellent. Well, we have spent all day listening to all types of speakers, a good array of them. And I wanted to leave today with a very inspiring speaker we captured for the very end. The next speaker has been in USANA for 17 years. Yes. A very, very inspiring, very respected leader in Canada and even in the whole USANA company. She's an author of Being Laser-Focused, Your Roadmap to Success. Have you seen that book? Yes. She's done also conference calls for All Cross Line. So you can find her on Facebook. She's magnificent. She's a 2-star diamond director, Fortune 25, and has been in IDC for many, many years because both her and her husband are so passionate about the business and so passionate about making it easier for the field in the future. She's also a Dr. West Vision Award winner, and she has recently returned from a climb from Nepal, Mount Everest Base Camp, with her sons. So, with beautiful legs that carry her on stage, I want you to notice her shoe, because she is a shoe collector, and I've learned that from her. I want you to welcome on stage, and very loud, please, Susanne Cunningham.
You learned well. I did. Thank you. I just told Belinda she's learned very well with the shoes. Nice. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. First, I want to start with gratitude. First gratitude piece is being here back home in Canada, healthy and safe from Nepal, from my Mount Everest Base Camp. Second of all, to be in this room with these powerful, energetic women and a few smart men. You're welcome. You're welcome. We have to mention our men. And to be sharing a stage in honor of sharing a stage with such powerful and motivating and inspirational women, probably some of the best speakers I've ever heard. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And I need you to help me to thank our hostesses, both of them, but Belinda in particular, who went out on a limb and brought these great events to this city and to the other 2 cities. There are cities all across Canada and probably the US as well clamoring to have such events. So we're very, very fortunate, and it's a wonderful job that you've done. Thank you. So how did I get to be so fortunate to go to Mount Everest Base Camp with my 3 sons? Well, first I'll mention that I have traveled with my sons since I started in USANA on mom and son trips, one-on-one. In fact, I was reminiscing as I was walking through the streets of Montreal yesterday because this was one of the first cities that I brought my eldest son to. And where he learned to be a gentleman, he gave me a rose. Interesting reminiscing, though, as I walked the streets, because I could see us playing, and that was the beginning. But where did I get this great fortune? Well, first of all, I don't have a boss. I didn't have to ask anyone for permission, which was really nice. I didn't have to extend my holidays. I didn't have to beg permission. No boss. Second of all, I have time freedom because I have residual income. And when you have residual income, anything is possible whenever you want it. And the third thing is that I have my health. My health that really probably I wouldn't have had if I had not met this company called USANA, because I had lots of symptoms that I called normal back in those days. But 17 years later, when most of us have more time, maybe more freedom, but we don't have our health to do the things that we want to do. So those are the reasons that I had the good fortune to take that trip. I'll talk more about that trip a little bit later, but there's a beginning to everything. And after following all these wonderful speakers, I hope that this summarizes it a little bit, but we all have a beginning and we all have someplace that we're going. My beginning started with a phone call. If there's any of you in this room that were invited today that was purely because of a phone call from a friend, well, that's what it was like. I was asked to take a look at something. And my friend was so excited, he said I had to hear it now. And I remember rolling my eyes and thinking, I don't have time for this. I'm happy. My boys are 3, 5, and 7. I have a career. I earn a 6-figure income. My husband's happy. I'm running a household. My life is good. But I had forgotten about the moments when I had had those restless moments, when I wondered, when am I going to get my break? Well, if you ask the universe provides. And I got my break. When that phone rang, I just didn't recognize it at the time. That's why I rolled my eyes. Well, I decided to be a good friend. And being a good friend, I decided to go and hear what my friend wanted me to hear. Little did I know that it was going to catch my attention so, but it did. And I have to tell the truth, it wasn't the products, it wasn't the company. Those were somewhat unfamiliar to me. But the business, the opportunity, now that caught my attention. What if I could own my own time? What if I could earn residual income for a lifetime for efforts that I had put in years before? Because I had work ethic. I knew that I could do a job. I knew that I could work hard. But how could I ever be paid forever? This sounded very intriguing. So I was very excited, and I went home to my husband and I said that we had this great idea that we could do together, and he said, nah. He wasn't nearly as excited. In fact, he was very skeptical, he was very satisfied, he was very happy, and he wasn't prepared to share me with something else. Well, I thought I could convince him, but the harder I tried to convince him, the less he listened to me. So the joke is there was 2 sets of papers, documents to get involved in an opportunity and divorce papers. I still have them. It all worked out. Anyway, but he wouldn't listen. He would not listen. And I had pretty much given up. One day, a few days later, I was sitting at my desk doing some other work for my other business, and the phone rang. And it was that friend again, just as excited as before, wondering what I thought, if I had any questions, and how I'd like to get started. I told him he better not hold his breath because he might turn blue. I didn't want to say no, but I had to say no at that very moment. I felt so anyway. I had to say no because I wasn't getting the kind of support I had hoped for. I heard the disappointment in his voice when he hung up the phone, and I was disappointed too. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. And this time, it was the man who had given me the presentation. His name was Ron. And he was all excited, and he wanted to know what I thought, and did I have any questions, and did I want to get started. And I said, did you just talk to Rennie? Actually, he had just spoken to Rennie. And he was the follow-up to the follow-up. But anyway, I told him the same thing, that I didn't want him to hold his breath. As disappointed as I was, I didn't want him to hold his breath. Well, he was a wise man because he asked me a question. He didn't try to convince me, he asked me a question. And that question was, what needs to happen? Again, if you ask a question, you get answers. And so the answer from inside bubbled up and said, someone else needs to tell my husband about this because he's not listening to me. Ron said, I'm in town. I can do that. I'll be right over. I said, I better get some permission first. So off I went. It was a holiday, and off I went to the base of the stairs to call up to my husband. And as I approached the base of the stairs, I felt this feeling. And I'm going to talk more about the feeling in a minute. I felt this feeling. I called up and I said, John, would it be okay if Ron came and presented the material to us? And he said, whatever. I took that as a yes, and I was gone. Now, that feeling, it was months later, absolutely months later, when that feeling, I was reminded of it. And I was wondering, what was that? What was that racing heart, the butterflies in the stomach, the sweaty palms, a lump in my throat? I wasn't afraid of the base of the stairs, and I wasn't afraid of John. So what was that feeling? I realized that I had been standing on that moment that was the edge of my future. If I had stepped back, it would have gone away. But because I stepped through it and forward, the feeling went away as well and was forgotten. I probably had felt it many times before, and I know I've felt it many times since, but on that occasion, I realized how impactful that moment is and how all of us, many of us, feel it and run. Maybe we should feel it, stand in it, and step forward. There have been so many gifts that have come from that decision, from that moment. I often said that before that day, if you had taken a picture of my family and myself, you'd have seen myself, my husband, 3 little boys, a house, wherever we were, and there'd be a certain amount of depth behind it. But what you see in these photographs is what I would say are some of the depths that are behind my photo now. Still a 4x6 photo. My boys are older, same husband, 30 years this year. But all of these things are things that I did because of that decision. So there I was standing on the edge of my future a month ago, prepared to go to Mount Everest Base Camp. One young lady has been there, actually a few people in this room have been there, so I don't have this experience all to myself. But for me, it was a big challenge. And the privilege of being able to go with my 3 sons, not just one at a time, and have Mother's Day after being at base camp. A really important moment for me. Taking that choice was all about, again, standing on the edge, feeling the fear, taking it for what it is, and stepping through it. There are 5 takeaways that I brought back from Mount Everest. There are many, and probably some of them still haven't been sorted out. But I wanted to touch on some things that I'm absolutely sure of. Goals. You need to have them. If you don't have goals, you will be walking on the flat lands of life. You'll know what will happen tomorrow and the next day, and it'll be pretty much the same as the next day and the next day. That's how your life will be. And you will adjust maybe by circumstance rather than by choices. So you must have goals. Do you have goals? I hope that you do, because goals are like being in the Himalayas. There are highs and there are lows, and highs and lows, and there are switchbacks. And apparently sometimes you have to go up to go down and down to go up. But that's exciting. That's really being alive. When I made the choice, first I had to choose. 2 years ago, opportunity showed up. I tried everything I could to make it happen, but it wasn't meant to be. But 2 years later, the opportunity came again. And because I had committed 2 years prior that it would happen, I took advantage. Committing. I put my money where my mouth was. I stepped into it. I paid up front. Sometimes that's what you have to do to really be committed. And then I had to move into action. Was there resistance about training or getting prepared? I live on the prairies. There's not many mountains, a couple of hills, but that's about it. So I found the tallest buildings in the city and climbed their staircase. A store owner called me a cat burglar. And it was kind of like that because I'd quietly go and work out. But that was me acting so that I could perform for my goal. Second takeaway is that there's going to be dream stealers. Dream stealers are like Grinches that steal Christmas or try to steal Christmas. Dream stealers, who are they? Often they're the people that love us. Sometimes they're the people that are afraid that we're getting too far away from them. Sometimes they're very uninformed, frightened, filled with doubt people, but they will try to snuff out your dreams if you let them. Sometimes they are voices in your head. It's too hard. It'll cost too much. It won't work out as I have planned. What if? What if? And that can snuff your dreams as well. Ask yourself, is it fact? Is it fiction? Is it opinion? I learned a long time ago that everyone has a right to an opinion. What I do with it is up to me. And at the end of the day, whose dream is it? If you have a dream, you have to act on it. No one else will do that for you. The next takeaway is that you have to be laser focused. I think I'm going to get known as Ms. Laser Focused, but this trip proved it. Person after person came up that mountain, climbing thousands of feet on any given day, and the only way they did it is by putting one foot in front of the other. One foot in front of the other. They couldn't worry about tomorrow. They couldn't worry about days ahead. They couldn't really spend too much time worrying about where they'd been, for that matter. They had to just put one foot in front of the other and one breath and then another breath. The focus was that specific. And people would come to a destination and they would share that it was focus, focus, focus. And that's what your goals are like. That's what your mountain is like. That's what your climb is like. It's one step before the other. There's no better example than this picture. This picture is a photograph of a porter carrying boards that were hand-sawed, I might mention, by a 5-foot saw, so about my height, a saw by 2 men, through a tree that is about 30, 40 feet long. You talk about manual labor. If we think we work hard, we need new perspective. But this is if you can see the legs, that's the legs of a man who's no taller than I, wearing old runners. He can't look up to see where his destination is, and he certainly can't look back to see where he's been. All he can do is one step, with altitude, I might add. So that puts laser focus into perspective. Sometimes the path that you're going to follow is going to be a downhill, but it's going to be a slippery slope. There'll be lots of little treacherous obstacles along the way, like slippery rocks. Sometimes you're going to use a bridge, which is really cool because it gets you from point A to point B without having to go down and back up. That's good. Use bridges every opportunity that you can. Sometimes you'll stop and you will think where you've been, but you're not quite there yet. You still have someplace further to go. Sometimes you'll look at, in my case, boulders as big as me and trying to climb and work around them. Those are the obstacles that we come across in our lives. And that was right after being pretty happy with where I'd been. And then there'll be days when the sun shines and everything seems to be easier and it seems like it's mostly downhill. And along the way, you're going to meet dream makers. People that have the same dream as you. Not dream stealers, but teams of people who want what you want. And you can walk or be with them. And you'll see your destination off into the distance, and it'll seem like you can touch it. But there may still be work to do, or maybe it is just around the corner. But when you reach your goal, you can pat yourself on the back and you can celebrate. Stand in the moment. Sometimes I think that we don't stand in the moments long enough and we rush to the next thing. So stand in your moments, the little wins, because every single one of those photographs was showing you at some point a little win to get me to the destination. The next takeaway is faith. If we think we have control, we're mistaken. Okay? So we can make the plans and set our goals, and we need to do that with faith that they're possible, that we deserve it, that they're achievable, that we'll meet the right people along the way. We must have faith. Without it, we really have nothing, to be totally honest. But we can't control who or when or what that will be. We can only have faith. We need to have faith when we deal with dream stealers because they're going to try hard to take our dreams. So we need to have faith then as well. But the reality is in life, we can set our goals, we can set our destination, but the journey will be different. Previous photographs of Mount Everest, you might remember the mountain with the golden caps. I had that vision in my mind. I really hoped that I was going to see the sun setting on Mount Everest. That was the vision that I went up there with. That is not what I saw. I saw Mount Everest many times, but it always looked different. And you know what? The reality is it always looked better. Because it wasn't a picture. It was real. It was mine. It was my view of Mount Everest. So sometimes when we get to our destination, it looks a little bit different than we expected. But that's perfect because it's your experience. And the last takeaway is comfort zone. How many of you know about your comfort zone? Is it big enough? It's huge? Good. Does it need to get bigger to accomplish some of your goals? In the center of the table, there are some balloons. Each one of you can grab a balloon, please. And we're just going to do one little thing here before we finish up. Okay, look at that balloon. Just take a look at it. And I want you to envision that this balloon is your comfort zone. Okay? And your comfort zone is a result. There's some of you doing workouts out there. That's good. Anyway, but that balloon is representative of your present comfort zone. Your present comfort zone comes from wherever you've been, whatever you've done to this point, where your experiences have led you to this point. But your comfort zone can grow. And sometimes, yes, some of you are growing your comfort zone by pulling it, and that's true, because someone else might pull you, give you a little tug every now and then to stretch your comfort zone. Maybe it's a family member or a friend or a boss or your upline or your downline. Okay? But now I want you to go back to your goal. I've talked about Mount Everest. I've tried to give you some analogies and some visuals. But what I want you to do is to think of your one goal. Pick just one goal, big or small, the next one that you want to accomplish, the next thing, what will it look like when you accomplish it, and how will it feel? And I want you to blow the vision, blow the energy of that vision into your balloon. So, how will it feel? How will you react? Will you celebrate? Will there be people involved? Will there be struggles that you will overcome? Big breath for that one. Your comfort zone is growing, and this is what it needs to do. It needs to grow for you to achieve that one goal that you have, to accomplish beyond all dream stealers that goal. Uh-oh. That just means she, yeah. She needed to meditate, I think. Anyway, the longer you can hold it like this comfort zone will stretch, and it will start to get more familiar with this shape, this size. And I'm going to let you quietly let the air out. Is there any such thing? You go ahead. Quietly let the air out. But if you look at the balloon now, is it not a little bit bigger than it was before? Is it not a little more flexible than it was before? And if we keep doing this, in our comfort zone, which I don't know any other way to represent it than this right now, but it can never go back. Once you've been there, it can never go back to being the same. You've changed it. You've helped it to grow. And so by you being in this room today, by you stepping out and doing something that's uncomfortable, you're changing the possibilities of your future. So ladies and gentlemen, you have felt the feeling that I talked about before. You know what I mean. You may not have heard words put to it before. You may not have thought of it as I did that day. But some of you felt it during the day-to-day. Some of you felt your heart racing or some thing that just felt different and you couldn't explain it because of something that someone said, something that you related to. If you didn't yet, maybe you have just now, or maybe it will be a few days from now. And in a few days, you're going to feel that feeling and you're going to go, I remember. And I'm just going to ask you, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose to step back? Or are you going to choose to stand in it for a moment, recognize it, and step through it? Because it is a pretty amazing experience on the other side. In fact, it's unimaginable in most cases. We can think we get it, but until you stand in the new life, you don't know what it is. I would like to tell you that that feeling is really just the pause before the ride or the climb of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, have the climb of your life. Thank you.
You have to do this at convention. Oh, c'était bon. C'était bon, vraiment bon. Très bon.
OK, le temps des cadeaux. Est-ce que vous aimez les cadeaux? Alors, on approche de la toute fin. Alors, premier tirage.
Now I know what the
Il y a
balloon's all
beaucoup de
about.
tirages, on aime ça, les cadeaux. J'aimerais inviter